This video is sponsored by MPB.
It's my kind of thing, isn't it? Very nice. Welcome to Oman, everybody. Somewhere in Oman, I don't know exactly where. The desert, I suppose. I'm here with Khalid, who is a man very much in the know. And together with Jord and Sophia, they are running a workshop, and I've basically crashed their workshop recce. It's very kind of them to let me tag along. I'm only here for a few days, but a wonderful country. Now, if you've watched many of my videos, you'll know that when I do trips like this, I'm not the keenest on vlogging. You know, saying, oh, we're going here now, and then we're going there, and then for lunch we're going to this cute little... No, I don't really like doing that. And it's difficult on trips like this to vlog, because you arrive somewhere and just want to take photos. Or I do. So instead what I thought I'd do is talk about something that comes up in most of the conversations that I ever have about photography. Is my plan. And try not to get sunburnt. My Welsh skin. Wait. Wow, we look good. Good to meet you, sir. I quite liked this scene, but now I'm second guessing myself, which in a really cheesy way links to what I wanted to talk about in this video, which is the fact every time I have a conversation with somebody about photography, I realise I'm not the only photographer who wonders how good their work is and if it's any good at all. Self-doubt seems to be a thing in our community, and occasionally you meet somebody who thinks their work is a gift to humanity, but more often than not, people exercise quite a lot of self-doubt in my experience, which makes sense. You know, in photography and art generally, it's difficult to find a consensus on what is good. You know, a definition of what's good to all people, because we all have different tastes, different styles. But I thought in this video I could talk a little bit about what I think makes a good photographer, for whatever that's worth. But I suppose largely in the hope that many of you would be defined as being a good photographer by me. Again, I don't know what that's worth. Okay, I'm getting burnt. First thing that I think marks out a good photographer is that you won't really be able to have a proper conversation with them in a potentially photogenic spot. Because even if they're looking at you, they'll be looking through you for opportunities, photo opportunities. And I've had lots of conversations with photographers in the past where you're both sort of saying, what? Constantly. And I should also say that all of these points have been designed to make sure that I can refer to myself as a decent photographer. But yeah, not listening or paying attention to conversations, I would suggest, is a sign that you're a good photographer, because you should be paying attention to what's around you more than anything else. I think as photographers, we're observers first and foremost. And yes, we carry these black boxes around with us, but they, I think, are just to document our observations. The chief skill is to observe, I think. So yeah, basically, if you get told off a lot for not listening, I think that potentially marks you out as a good photographer. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet, and sometimes I write bullet points for these videos to remind me of what I want to talk about. But in this case, I've written a paragraph, and because my coffee hasn't kicked in yet, I think I'll just read the paragraph. And it starts with a quote: "Where all think alike, no one thinks very much." I've been thinking about that quite a lot recently, and I don't know if it's because I live in Wales and that quote reminds me of the mentality of sheep. But we live in an age of media where unfathomable amounts of money are spent every day. Hey! Where was I? Yeah, we live at a time where unfathomable amounts of money are spent on trying to get us to look at imagery. And I think when that's the case, we're liable to constantly be influenced by what it is that we're looking at. And it becomes difficult to recognize what is your voice and your vision versus just stuff that you've been constantly bombarded with. And therefore noticing what it is that you actually like and want to shoot rather than just what you're being shown, I think that's a real skill. And lots of people I know get frustrated when they feel they've been copied, but often I wonder how much people are copying on purpose, and conversely, how aware they are of their own voice. And I think being able to pay attention to your own genuine preferences and what it is that you want to shoot and how you want to shoot it, that, again, I think is another mark of a good photographer. Anyway, I think I can feel this coffee starting to kick in.
As I've said before many times, I love shooting stuff like this. It's not for everyone, but it's so full of life. It makes me happy.
There's a bottle of water stood up about 10 meters from the lorry. Which makes me think that the driver was able to get out and contemplate what had happened and drink some water. That could be wrong, but that's what I'm hoping happened. Compositionally, it's very interesting. You've got the tree on the left, the mountains on the right. It's a very human nature scene. I can't see. Just gonna ask Khalid to turn the engine off. Next thing, knowing your camera. I think there is a big correlation between how somebody is able to go and make adjustments with their camera on the fly and how many good photos they get versus somebody who is the opposite, who's sort of fumbling around and missing opportunities because they're taking their time with changing their settings. And as much as photography is about observation, I think it's also about anticipation. Being able to work out what's going to happen in a scene in front of you and adjust yourself and your position accordingly, but also adjust your camera accordingly. And the faster you can do that and the more seamlessly you can do that, the more chance you stand of good photos, I think. So if you're conversant with your camera and your settings, I think it's a sign of a good photographer. Yeah. What a crazy scene. I don't know if this guy's about to take off again, but hopefully he is, even though the light has faded now. Another thing I would say that is a sign you're a good photographer is taking 10 photos a year that you're proud of. Now 10 is obviously just a round number, but something like 10 photos a year that you're proud of. And the important bit in that is photos that you yourself are proud of. Because as nice as it is to get compliments from other people about your photos or have people buy your prints or your books or whatever it might be, pride has to come from within, is my opinion. A, because it makes you bulletproof from criticism of others, because if you're happy with stuff, it doesn't really matter what other people think. And B, if your pride about your work comes from the compliments of others, it means you're much more likely to end up heading down a road of being impacted by what others think. And you might end up following trends or just taking photos for the sake of the likes and wants of other people. So yeah, being proud of your own work is important. And 10 photos a year, I think, is a pretty good return. Doesn't look like this guy's going to take off. Is he going to take off?
Huh?
Is he going to take off?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, he's going?
Yeah, it's already over. Yeah, he'll take off. He'll take off now. But it's dark already. But
Yeah.
unless you want to have it with the sunset.
He needs some headlights.
Huh?
He needs some headlights.
Yeah. It's flat now.
That's a cool shot. Well, that goat market was quite intense, but this is a very, very interesting place, and I'm trying to work out where to stand now that there's light on these walls. Maybe here looks pretty good. But while I wait for something interesting to happen, I thought I could talk about the last sign that you're a good photographer, which is that you have, I was going to use the word focus, but that gets confusing in photography, doesn't it? So I suppose I could use the word flavor or something. You know, if you try to photograph everything under the sun and you try to do it well, all genres, in all places, in all kinds of different styles, your stuff begins to look muddled, unfocused, and you never really get good at any one thing. So all the best photographers I know, I can pretty much say with confidence that for every photo of theirs I see, it's their photo. And that, I've learned, is an important marker for me at least to determine who is a good photographer. Can I make this scene work? The irony of talking about consistency in photography while I'm photographing a goat market in the middle of Oman is not lost on me. I mean, it was then, but it's not now. Oman? Oman. Anyway, I also asked George if he could think of any signs of being a good photographer. This is what he said.
Yeah, one that comes to mind would be they would be critical of their own work. So when you're starting out, often you're thinking, well, at least in my case, is the photo sharp and is it exposed correctly? And if so, in both cases, then surely it's a good image. But I found that maybe I was making a lot more progress when I actually started to question my own work. You know, does this composition actually work? Should I come back for better light? How could I have improved the composition of this shot? Whether or not I could have done them differently. I mean, fortunately, I'm coming back next week, so I haven't got that problem. You, on the other hand, you're going home. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's always important to think about how we could do it differently. Even some of my favourite photos I've taken, I mean, sometimes I wonder if it's you can sometimes take it a little too far. Some shots that other people seem to love of mine, I'm still wondering, well, could I have done this differently? Could I have waited a second or two longer for something else to happen? I mean, it's kind of a never-ending spiral if you don't know how to manage it, which I think is something I struggle with. Thank you. It's almost like therapy for me, answering these questions.
I would say photography full stop is like therapy for me. Maybe George as well, and probably all photographers, but there we go. Now, if you're interested in a trip to Oman, and I would highly recommend it, definitely check out George to see if he's got any space on one of his upcoming workshops. I hope to go back soon as well, because there's one shot in particular that's going to live rent-free in my head until I go back and shoot it, because we didn't pull over. Always pull over if you think there's a shot, and I didn't insist that we did. So there we go. Anyway, while I try and get over that and not cry, A big thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, MPB. And another thing that I think marks out a good photographer is that they have their gear dialed. And by that, I don't necessarily mean that they've got a camera bag full of the brightest, sharpest, most expensive primes. What I mean is that their gear works for them. Lots of my favourite photographers use lenses like 24 to 200s, which are not the most expensive, not the brightest, and certainly not the sharpest, but they get the job done for those photographers. Jord uses a 24 to 70 pretty much exclusively, and a camera, obviously, then a spare battery, but that's all he carries with him. And I spoke quite recently about the fact that I've just been using my 24 to 50 and my Sony, and that's basically it. All the photos that you've seen in this video were shot with this tiny little lens and this setup. And of course, I'm not saying that you have to have completely minimal gear and that you can only use one lens, but I think it's important to understand what you need versus what you're lusting over. And good photographers, I think, broadly speaking, know the difference. Then I've definitely struggled with that in the past. Anyway, if you're looking to get your kit into a position where you have what it is that you need, then I would highly recommend checking out MPB, both for selling and purchasing used cameras and lenses. And accessories, actually. They've got lots of those too. Selling couldn't be simpler. You can just get a quote online, and if you're happy with the quote, MPB can arrange for a courier to come to your front door. And if you're looking to add to your kit, then you can save hundreds, if not thousands, as I have over the years, by buying used. And you can do so safe in the knowledge that every product you purchase from MPB comes with a 6-month warranty. Anyway, check MPB out, and a huge thank you to them for their continued support of this channel. And thank you to you for watching. I loved my 3.5 days there, but next time I'll definitely be back for longer. To photograph those goats again. That'd be nice.